Good, buddy.
All right. There we go. I see it.
It's recording.
Yeah, cool. So I guess, for the first kind of Facebook Live on us with people, joining us now, tell me a little bit about, I guess, your decision. You're looking at, you're an agent and you're looking to grow and kind of get into the real estate business a little bit more. Like what's your decision-making process? Tell me that journey that led you up to wanting to start your own brokerage.
Yeah, so it's there's a lot to it when you're running your own brokerage and you go from an independent agent, at a Remax, Keller Williams, and whatnot, to kind of go on your own. Obviously, you kind of do it to save costs or maybe to be able to grow it your own way. And when I started doing that, and I made that jump, and I did it for about 4 years, grew my team. It would always fluctuate in size, and I started to realize what was that I was lacking in that independent model to kind of go to that next level, what I was struggling with. And so I kind of sat down and made a list and was like, all right, what is it that I need to grow? And it kind of came down to, 4 or 5 different things. And some of it, probably the first one that I noticed was to be able to grow and keep your overhead lower. And I guess what I mean by overhead is your support staff, just as far as admin, accounting, IT and stuff, because I noticed when I would grow, a lot of my time would be taken up. I've always had an admin assistant at that point, and she was taking on a bunch with it. But I always needed more support, and I was having to jump in, still producing. So I knew number one was I need to be able to find a place, a franchise that kind of had all that with it, that would help with the onboarding, help with just the simple fact of IT stuff. As an agent comes on board and you give them their CRM logins or their email logins, and I can't get in, I can't do that, and having someone to do that, which was taking a ton of time just doing the training of it. So I guess first, definitely I knew that I needed that support, which I knew a franchise model would have that. So that was probably the number one thing right away.
So you feel like, do you feel like when you had 2 or 3 agents, it was a little bit easier to handle? And then as you started to scale up, like, was it more difficult with training? And like, what about for you on the cost of it too? Like, how did that scale? Was it scalable?
Yeah, and the way I was calculating the cost of it was more time. When you're still producing, you can go out and get a $300,000 listing, or you're spending time training someone on just how to make cold calls or how to follow up with leads, and you're not really sure they're getting it or you're going to get the value out of it. So you're constantly juggling that cost of your time to train, to do certain things that really can be done by someone for $10, $15 an hour, and you're spending your time doing that. So yeah, that's the way I kind of calculated it as far as cost goes. Obviously, bringing on someone new, adding to the payroll, that extra cost, that salary, was something that, as an independent broker, you want to try to stay as skinny as you can with that. So, that's how I was calculating the cost with as far as adding admin and support staff.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that's a very common thing. I hear talking to agents all the time when, we're looking, because, there's a certain trajectory, right? So you have, like, you come in as an agent and you're trying to figure out, like, I don't know if I like buyers. I don't know if I like sellers. What am I good at? What do I gravitate towards? And then, you naturally are like, well, I could do way more sellers than buyers. So a lot of agents, they get smart to it. And they're like, I could do 6 sellers, but three buyers, and I'm going all over town chasing, the side. But some people love that. Some people like seeing the pictures and taking people around, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're looking on the growth trajectory, then you go and say, well, gosh, if there was 5 of me, how much could I boost my income? And, could I provide for 4 other agents who, I don't want them to come in the industry and struggle the same way I did, like trying to figure out the pieces of it, unless you get a really strong mentor. And then from there you look and say, well, gosh, I want to run a team. So what do I do first? do I run and get the admin person to help me with all my stuff, or do I hire, do I refer out my buyer's leads? Like what was that step initially for you?
Yeah, and so I feel like most team leaders or brokers, if they're still producing, they're like, I can do it all. And they start spreading their time so thin where it potentially could mess up some of their production, definitely messes up the growth and the fast tracking of a new agent that comes on that maybe just needs some extra training or knowing, hey, do I go after sellers? Do I go after buyers? So that whole point of bringing on team members is to magnify what you can do. But if you can't really give them the time to kind of train them what you could do, it ends up being counterproductive. And then you end up kind of like wasting time and not giving them what they need. And that kind of rolls into the second reason why I really decided I knew I needed to go find more of a franchise model was the training. Doing training as an agent I've been in for 15 years, I can go and I can teach agents, this is what I've done, stuff like that. But to have constant updating of the training that's provided when I'm not available, I knew I didn't have that. And to create it, more admin, more mark. I mean, you just got to have people to do that. So I wanted, hey, look, I want somewhere that's got training already done. It's updated all the time. The agents have access to it whenever they want. And as well as the training that I was going to do too in my time. I'm not going to have training every single week or every single day. So I knew I needed that aspect of it by, adding people to duplicate yourself. They got to be trained. So if there was a way that I could train them with me not having to be as involved, I was like, that's what I need. That was definitely the second thing on my list of kind of to check off what I was looking for in that franchise model.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that all the time too, because one thing that you were talking about is on the production side. I hear that from every person who's looking to start that initial growth phase, which is to bring a few people on, and they're like, but now I have to also invest into possibly like more leads, and that's a whole other topic for another day. I don't want to dive into that. We could talk about that for 2 hours, but people start to say, well, if I need to invest more, then it's going to push me to go do more production, because that's the tendency is like, now I got to go sell one more house to buy X amount of leads or to do this latest thing, and so having some sort of a model or structure definitely alleviates that pressure, to keep in the production side.
Yep. And that's kind of like, it's funny how all of these things that I came up with that I needed tied in together. And a lot of this is the support part of it, but like the third thing that I was thinking, like, okay, look, I got to provide them tools, CRMs, apps, transaction management, the list goes on. I've gone from Real Geeks, Boomtown, Follow Up Boss, just constantly shifting, trying to find a great price. When you're providing a CRM to every agent that costs $75 to $100 just for CRM, it gets costly. And the more agents you bring on, the more overhead with it. Then you got to train them on these CRMs to use it. Because if you provide it, you're paying $100 for it, and you get them to use it, they're not even using it. It didn't make sense. So I knew that the second thing, or the third thing kind of was the franchise that I chose needed to have good tools and technology already in place for a price, good price. And so that did a lot of shopping with that. And it all tied back into the training support. So, an agent comes on board, hey, here's your CRM, here's your logins, go figure it out. Call me if you have questions. Or you have like a day of training with it. That's not enough to code. These CRMs these days are so complex and so powerful that it takes weeks of training with it. So I knew, hey, look, I didn't have time to do that. Cool. If there was training already in place and it's constantly updating, awesome. Guess what? If there's all the support staff with questions, they don't have to come to me. They really go to the professionals. Boom, even better. So you could see how the systems part of it was crucial, but the first two steps made it crucial because you can provide anybody the best CRM in the world. They don't know how to use it or aren't taught how to use it. It's worthless.
Right. I mean, we always joke around and say, people will say to you, hey, what's the best CRM that you know of? And I'm like, the one you're going to use is the best one. Like, because certainly they all do, they're all similar, and there are advantages to some versus others. But the next step is like, how do you integrate that into the bigger business model, and how do you actually make it actionable for a management level? Like when you're looking to grow, like how, not on the accountability side, but like the ROI and the spends and the things that you tie into that technology, it all matters. And, when you start to research that, you add another layer of technology in, and then another layer of technology. And soon 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things are now doing similar stuff. And so is there a piece you can unplug that, spreads across and saves money? And, but then when you buy into something on the franchise side, you don't have to worry about that. It's all integrated and it's all plugged in, and an agent can benefit from that, and then also the manager benefits at the same time. And you're right, the training piece, because you're also like, if you have a certain amount of churn with agents, and some people just come in and they get it and they're like, oh, I understand the value of this technology and why it's important and how to use it. And then that's like 20% will jump in and just, like you do, you're just, I want to figure out how it works, and I want to tie it into this and shoot this lead here automatically. And like, like you're the prime candidate for technology. And then 60% are kind of always going to be that wait and see, like, well, let me see what those guys do. And if it kind of seems like it's working, I'll jump on board. I just lag a little bit. And 20% are like, I'd rather just keep my leads on my stone tablet and chisel, because I like that. I've always done it that way, And you're like, okay, well, great. But, if you're not going to jump into it and use it, there's not, when you're lagging behind everybody else's sales, I can't help that,
And one of my team leaders in small brokerages don't realize, and they might though, is you waste so much time. Yeah, let's say you love a certain CRM. Does it integrate with your transaction management? No.
Mm-hmm.
That's another step. That's more time. That could end up causing another admin to be hired. So everything ends up having to be integrated. So a lot of time you're spending like, all right, how can I streamline all this? And I spent so much time and money always trying to make that perfect and get the right system, and then something would change. And I'm like, God dang it, now I gotta do this again.
Well, then, we talked about this, because we've talked quite extensively and worked together. So we all had the benefit of having this relationship, before talking about these topics. But, how much is the value of your time for that, and where is it best spent? And it's not going to be being the systems developer, too. Like there's just other things that are more important, even though that's a crucial aspect of the business. So then your options are, I got to go hire someone to do it, or I got to hire a firm to do it for me, it's a terrible spot too if you got to farm it out to like overseas, and then there's a time gap in between there, and that's so frustration. And so there's a lot of things that play, like, well, gosh, if I can grab something out of the box from somebody who's already gone through and done all the headaches, then it does make it easier it knocks out one of your challenges to starting your own brokerage.
Well, right. And then they also make sure they stay up with technology to keep it going, where I kept running, I come up with a great system. Like I said, something would change, and I would have to redo it all, fix it all again. Where I would much rather someone else do that. And look, they handle it. They get the professionals to do it. So you just, as an independent broker, you have to do so much IT, lead route, all these different things that is not really in our wheelhouse. We're good at going out, selling, getting listings, working with buyers. That type of stuff is kind of what we're better at. Not sitting there trying to figure out how leads are being routed, but
parsing stuff, and it's crazy.
Uploading correctly, and all that kind of goes in with it. And again, this ties into probably one of the, I don't know if this was important, but one of my last reasons was, okay, all these things I was having to do and be worried about expanding, training systems and stuff. What would it take for me to be able to get out of production, where maybe I had time to work on more of that, help the agents out, grow more rapidly? So that was my fourth main concern, like, how will all these things that I need help me get out of production? And once I realized that all three of those I mentioned previously all tie in together to get out of production, because then once you're able to have those systems, have that training lined up for them, then you just kind of add on your little tweaks and what you like to those systems to be able to step back, really evaluate your business, not work in your business, but really work on it. Then you can see certain moves and plays you need to make, where when you're still producing, still trying to run your own systems, sign up for .loop, sign up for Brokerage, all these things just wears you down. And once you're able to step out of production, and I was able to, right when I kind of moved into the franchise model, because so much was kind of taken care of that I didn't need to, you know, I was able to really focus on growing it fast enough to where the income I was making was able to just translate to the new model with the agents I had, and then the ones I was bringing on. So that was a big one. And I know a lot of team leaders and stuff, we talk about that, or independent brokers, like, how do I get out of production? What do I do? And it's not easy. It's super hard. And, you know, not having certain things lined up will not allow it. You'll end up getting out and going right back in. I have a lot of friends that run teams, and that's happened to them. And it's just so much to it. But, you know, with that being said, is once you're able to step out, those systems become important, because then you can do an overview of what's going on. Like, you always know, okay, this agent has got these deals going on. This agent has these deals going on. Where when you're in the midst, you've got no idea. You see a buzzer come up, you're like, yes. But now with the systems and stuff on the brokerage level and franchise level, you kind of know, you can forecast, you're able to tell and start running conversion numbers better. That was a weakness of mine when I had it. I had so much going on that I really couldn't dive into what my agents' really conversion rates were. Like, what were they struggling on? What can I help them with? And being able to step out of production changed a lot of that.
Yeah, you've said two things that will always stick with me. The one is on your conversion rates, where you were talking about running Zillow leads, and you're like, you got to earn your way on to the Zillow. Like, there's a Zillow A, like a premium group of agents that I know are converters, because I can see that software is tied together. And I can track conversion rates. And then there's like an entry level Zillow people that, you know, hey, I'm going to give you a shot, and it's up to you to prove it, but I'm going to give you every opportunity. You're going to have all the technology, everything that you need. And then I thought that was such a great idea, because we don't really track it at that level a lot of times, you know? And then the second thing that, and you're going to laugh, because I don't know if you remember saying it to me or not, but you were like, you know, I measure, not, it's a question, it's a lead into a question for now, how you measure success.
Mm-hmm.
But you said it to me, you know, like, buddy, here's how I measured success before, is I'd go in at the end of the month after all the bills are paid, and if there was money in the account, I was successful, you know? And I know you laugh at that now, because I think a lot of us lived in that way. And even not in just business, but in life, you know, like at the end of the month, man, you got a little bit of money left, great month. So, but now you run through and click the report.
If that bank account was bigger at the end of that month it was last month, you're like, cool. All right.
Yeah. And not only that, you said the key word too, the forecasting side of being able to tie the software in and see, like, you know, we always talk a top three things that we really focus on: the recruiting, the ratifying contracts, and closing deals, you know. And so you can go into the software and forecast out a month or 2 months in advance and know, like, hey, if this takes X to run, let's call it $5,000 for a month, I got to pay $5,000 to run my little team, or my small office, or whatever. But if I go in and now I know that I have 12,000 in ratified deals coming through, you know, a certain percent aren't going to close. You know, it's a small percent once it's ratified, you know, there's usually a big problem, but you can say, well, gosh, I'm counting on $12,000. So now I know that I have $7,000 to go out and do something with. Do I put that, invest that into recruiting, but you can do it with certainty now, because you see the numbers in black and white, you know?
Yeah. And again, too, diving into each agent to knowing, how many leads they had, how many deals they have under contract. So you're able to start shifting to that, like you mentioned, the A team and B team that we kind of have. And that is for Zillow, the way we do it too, because what we do, we're in the Flex program here in Atlanta. So it's very important that you stay the top of the teams.
Right. They grade you. And yeah.
The 45 teams in Atlanta that get Zillow here. So when we're one of them, so we really have to dive into that. And once we started doing that, we started relating that back to even our regular leads, whether it's homes.com, you know, Facebook, whatever, and starting to really dive into their numbers and experience scores or their customer service. That was huge too. And I'll tell you, there was no way I could have done that without being out of production. Like,
right.
I would have probably lost my Zillow account. The agent's conversion rates would have been low. And you know, it really would have, I couldn't have done it.
Well, there's a certain amount of time, and what's the greatest net income producing thing you can do with your time, you know? So
absolutely. Yep. And you know, and going to really, by being able to step out of production, having those systems, having the support, having the training, I was able to really keep just the same one admin to really help out. We have 52 agents now in 4 locations, to really be able to service all of them. And I was able to bring on a recruiter to really keep growing that. So that was huge to be able to step out of production, then not really have to add on admin staff, which it's really hard to calculate the ROI of an admin. You know, you can bring on a recruiter, you can bring on an ISA, you can calculate their ROI immediately, knowing what they're bringing in, what that those, you know, who they're bringing in, what deals will close. It's hard to do it with an admin. So I knew that I really didn't want to bring on more admin. And so the support from the corporate side of it was huge in that. And then, like I said, I could bring a recruiter. I knew my ROI on that. ISA knew the ROI. So I was able to bring on a more key players that I could really calculate to see what was growing the brokerage as opposed to just maintaining it.
Right. That's, you know, from the opposite angle, right? So you're coming from the bottom up view of working up the agent view. And then I'm at the corporate side looking the other direction, and we're building like our programs and things that we're doing. And we're saying, you know, as we compete with other people that are offering value and prices and all this stuff, it really starts to come down to, you know, that service that you're producing, right? So do I need that extra position, or do I know that there's a process in place that's going to save me that time and money? Because look, you double from 50 to 100 agents, how many admins would that take? You know, you start to calculate the expense. Certainly it's scalable, and certainly, you know, you're like, well, great. If I'm making 50 grand in net a month and I hire an admin, I'm making 60 grand in net a month with the same transactions, then, well, gosh, there's a benefit, but that's not that easy. Like with an admin, it is a gray area. So
it is same with accounting and all that. It's tough to calculate that. And so that's why I knew I wanted to keep that part as skinny as possible. And I didn't mind raising up on the stuff that I could calculate the ROI. Same with leads, you know, if you see a certain lead source that's killing it, jack it up, you know, keep pumping that lead source. Same with, I feel like with people that you bring on at certain positions of growth.
yeah, well, I like that. So you said the top four things are training, support, the cost, and getting out of production. Those are your four.
It's systems. Yep. And
I
systems.
like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I'll add support and systems kind of in one big bucket. But well, great, man. Well, I appreciate, you know, always this weekly time that we get to share together. And I think that the, you know, people that are on teams or you know, just kind of looking at a team getting up and scaling, or maybe looking at a brokerage model, or you know, starting independent or going to a franchise. Like, I think there's a value in listening to kind of these little sessions, because, you know, certainly if I can help someone avoid the mistakes that we made along the way, you know, so if you know, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on a podcast or whatever, just find us through Facebook, through YouTube. We're going to go ahead and blast links and everything out, along with, so you'll see a lot of our pictures up and around. Just click on them, and, you know, we're always available for calls or just to, you know, to ask a question too and get a couple of resources.
Yep. Absolutely. Hit us up.
All right, man. Thanks. I'll see you.
See you guys.